Hello brothers and welcome back to another video. So we're going to be carrying on with the Siege of Terra series. We're at the next book, which is called MORTIS. This is written by John French. The following information I'm going to be talking about, of course, is going to be packed with spoilers. So if you want to avoid the spoilers for this book, please leave now. This is going to be a summary. I'm not going to go into every single situation that goes on in this book, just the big bits that stuck out for me and which I think is the most interesting part of the book. So let's jump in and let's get talking. So with this book, we are nearing the end game of the Siege of Terra series. Now, disregarding the novellas, there's only 3 big books left in this series. We know that Chris Ray is yet to give his book, Aaron Downs-Caboden has yet to give his book, and Dan Abnett has yet to do his second book, because Dan Abnett was confirmed to do 2 books a part of this Siege of Terra series. I'm going to say that Dan Abnett is going to write the final book, because since he started the Horus Heresy, it would only be right for him to finish it. So it's either going to be Chris Ray or Aaron who are going to be writing the next books. Now, as I mentioned, we are nearing the end game, and one of the reasons why this is happening is that the Emperor is actually growing weaker now. If you cast your mind back to the start of the Siege of Terra series, the Emperor is more or less kind of slapping Horus down in the warp, because they're kind of having this little dance of death in the warp. As the Emperor grows weaker, Horus grows stronger, and we actually get to see this more in the book now. The Emperor is like exhausted. There's like a symbolic tree near him. There's like waters gather there, and the Emperor, you know, he's like symbolic. He needs to drink from that water to kind of survive, and that is drying up, and the Emperor is going very gone, and he's more or less kind of dying in the warp. But that symbolizes him losing his power as Horus grows stronger. Now, the last book left on a huge cliffhanger, and that was Corswain and his Dark Angel fleet reach the Sol System. The Dark Angels are here at the Siege of Terra, or only a small portion of the Dark Angels are here at the Siege of Terra. The Lion's not here, it's just Corswain and his fleet are now in the Sol System, and they are ready to bring the war to the traitors. Now, as Corswain entered the Sol System, he was hailed by the remnants of the Solar Fleet, who are hiding around the rings of Saturn, if I'm not mistaken. The rings of Saturn are like covering them from Auspex and stuff, so the traitor fleet can't spot them. For those of you who don't know, the phalanx and stuff like that is waiting there just in case Terra does fall and the Emperor needs to, you know, get out of jail free card, so they can zoom in, get him on there and warp out. That's Rogel Dawn's like last type of plan. Now, some of the ships that are actually gathered there are the phalanx, of course, so we all know who the phalanx is, the biggest and the bestest battleship in the galaxy. Yes, that is my fanboy opinion. The Red Tier, so the Red Tier is a Gloriana class ship, and it is the Blood Angels flagship. It's a flagship of Sanguinius. The Monarch of Flame, which is a huge Imperial Fist battleship. I think it's only second to the Phalanx when in terms of firepower, so that really gives you a perspective on how much dakka this thing can bring into a firefight. But the biggest reveal is that they actually have the Emperor's flagship with them, the Imperator Somnium. So, for those of you who've been wondering what the hell happens to the Emperor's flagship, it will see action in this book, and it is some glorious bloody action, but we'll get to that later on. So Corswain is basically arrived at the Sol System, and he was hailed off this Sol fleet, and they've said, no, come to us, wait for us, because Corswain has brought like 10,000 legionnaires. He's got like 20 plus ships, so he could really help out if, you know, Rogel Dawn needs to reenact his plan. But Corswain refuses. He wants to drive deep into Terra and relight the Astronomicon, because the Astronomicon is out. So without the Astronomicon being relit, then the Dark Angels, the Ultramarines, anyone who's coming to reinforce to help the Loyalist defenders at Terra can't reach it, because they have no guidance to get to the planet. So Corswain wants to go down and relight the beacon, so the reinforcements who are coming can actually get to the system and purge the traitors. Now, one of the cool things about this is, of course, that Corswain is here. There's 10,000 Dark Angels, but a chunk of those Dark Angels reinforcements have come from Caliban. As Corswain was making his way to Sol, he stopped at Caliban and Luther gave him the reinforcements. So those true sons of Caliban are actually true to Luther and Caliban rather than the Emperor and the Dark Angels, or the Lion, let's say. So the troops in there, they have their own agenda to make sure that Caliban comes out on tops. But again, we'll get into that part of the story when we get there. Now, we need to go back to Terra because there's some interesting things that are happening at Terra. Let's start with the Loyalists that are still defending the palace. And now these are just the basic humans. These are not the Space Marines, because there's something very, very bad that's happening. Now, as chaos is getting more and more present on the planet, these defenders, these loyalists, are actually starting to doubt themselves. They're actually turning on each other, murdering, killing not only their fellow soldiers, but their kin. You know, family members are murdering and stuff like that, because it's the power of chaos. It's getting into their mind, it's twisting them, it's making them do evil, evil things. So there's like an investigation set up by Cinnamon, if I'm not mistaken, to investigate and, like, you know, how they can go against this, how they can stop this, because if it doesn't stop, then there's basically going to be no humans to defend the bloody walls, because they're all going to be killing each other and going mad because chaos is slowly encroaching into their minds. Now, there's something that is very, very interesting that happens with Perturabo, and I have to say, and I actually hate to say this, but Perturabo is only really the guy who's got his head screwed on, a part of the Loyalists. Like, everyone else is just batcrap insane. You know, the chaos, the demonic primarchs are fighting their own little wars, their own little agendas. Perturabo is there to do one thing: bring down the walls and grant Horus victory. Now, Horus summons Perturabo to the Vengeful Spirit to discuss the state of the conflict, to talk about what is, you know, what's going on and stuff like that. Now, it starts off very, very nice. Like, Horus, you know, he's giving his approval for Pert and all his plans and stuff like that. But then he reveals that he actually knew about the Saturnine Gambit. And for those of you who didn't read the last book or need a bit of refresh, what the Saturnine Gambit was is that there was a crack or something in the wall, and Perturabo slung everything at it. Well, more or less Abaddon found it, but Perturabo knew about it. So Abaddon basically took the cream of the crop when it came to the Sons of Horus. Fulgrim's Legion was there, but it was a trap by Rogel Dawn, and they were all massacred. Abaddon escaped with his life. The Emperor's children, more or less, their legionary were wiped out by it. But Horus knew about it. Horus knew about the plan. He didn't intervene because he thought it was worth the risk, but it never paid off. And this is where we start to see now where Perturabo sees the true corruption of what chaos is. And I actually do feel a bit sorry for him, because he's basically left one, as he sees it, a tyrant, and joined more or less another tyrant. Like, Horus actually steps towards Perturabo, and Perturabo sees like this like inferno inside of him. Like, when he looks at him, like the pressure causes Perturabo's veins to pop all across his body, and he tenses. Perturabo holds his ground because it's goddamn Perturabo. He's one of these goddamn arrogant people. But then all the pressure vanishes and Horus returns to normal. But he's starting to see now what Horus is truly becoming, what he is giving himself over to, and Perturabo does not like it one bit. So Perturabo returns to the battlefront, and his advisor Argonus then comes to him and says he's received more orders from Horus, and this is the biggest change to the law, and it absolutely blew my mind. So Horus basically said to Perturabo he needs to reorganize his Iron Warriors. He needs to move them to like different war fronts where they're going to be bleeding, they're going to be dying. And first off, this is what Perturabo hates. He hates that his sons are always on the forefront. They're the ones who are always bleeding, just dying, while all the others are getting all the glory. And then he has to give the overall assault, the command of the assault, to Mortarion and the Death Guard. Perturabo now realizes that this is no longer a war, but a story of basically corruption and madness. The Legion War that he more or less signed up for, that he sided with Horus for, is over. Those days are gone. He realizes that Horus is using him as the Emperor used him, to bring destruction and nothing more. Horus has enslaved Perturabo to his will of death. He realizes that Horus has handed command to things of the warp. These disgusting creatures who bear no honor. The chance of true victory has gone, and Perturabo, again, will not let his men bleed for this war. Why should he let his men bleed for Chaos and for Horus? He never let him bleed for the Emperor and his stuff, so why should he do it for Horus? So in this moment, this is when Perturabo puts out the call, and he withdraws all the Iron Warriors from the Siege of Terra. And what I mean by withdraws the Iron Warriors, they get on their ships and they leave the Sol system. They're not in space. They're not waiting in orbit or anything like that. They absolutely leave the Siege of Terra as a whole. Perturabo, the mastermind of this siege, is now leaving. He's going. He will not fight this war anymore. Argonis, the chap who is Perturabo's advisor, turns to Perturabo and says, once Horus, takes this throne world, he's got to come and hunt for you. And Perturabo just turns to him and says, then so be it. It's just one of these things. We're all damned anyway. I will not let my sons die for this, for Horus's damnation anyway. They can die in their own type of right. So yes, the Iron Warriors have left the Siege of Terra. This was actually mind-blowing for me, because I thought they'd be there to the end, but they're not. The Iron Warriors have gone. Perturabo has gone. Now let's switch back over to Corswain, because this is one of the coolest things that happens in the book. So Corswain is moving forward with his plan to attack Terra. He's basically putting all his Dark Angels into 4 ships, and they are going to break through the traitor ships and land on Terra to retake the Astronomicon, which is at the Hollow Mountain. Now to do this, they actually employ the Emperor's flagship, the Imperator Somnium. It has technologies that basically hides the Dark Angel ships sailing in its wake from detection for long enough so they can actually get right upon the enemy, engage them, and then drop pod down onto the surface and start their assault on the Hollow Mountain, and again retake that Astronomicon. So Corswain sets off with the Imperial Somnium and his 4 ships packed with Dark Angels. Now as they get close to the traitors, they're of course detected, but the traitors are like, what the hell, what's all this? Now the Imperium Somnium is the Emperor's ship, of course, and it unleashes its weapons upon the traitor fleet. The Dark Angel ships that were in its wake take this chance while the traitors are focusing on the Emperor's ship and unleash their drop pods, landing craft to assault the Hollow Mountain and relight the beacon. Now all the firepower is actually on the Imperial Somnium now. It's slowly dying. Corswain gives his thanks to this lone custodian who's piloting the ship, and I salute you for your sacrifice and stuff like that. As the Emperor's ship is dying, it's still taking out masses of ships because of all this insane technology it's got. Finally though, it explodes and the pieces of metal and destruction start hitting ships that it's around it. It actually hits the Conqueror and the Terminus Esk, which are the flagships of the World Eaters and the Death Guard, and they receive heavy damage. They're not destroyed, they're just heavily damaged. I'm not too sure if they're going to take them out of the action or anything like that, but it does say they were damaged with the explosion of the Imperium Somnium. Now don't forget, the main bit of this is that the Fallen are part of the force that has now landed to retake the mountain. They are led by a chap called Vassago, and let's refer to him the Fallen Vassago. I'm just going to call him Vassago. Now his actual plan was to murder Corswain before he launched his assault, but of course that plan has changed because he sees there's advantage in this for Caliban. So the Dark Angels launch their assault on the Hollow Mountain, and it's swarming with demons and Emperor's children. Vassago actually saves Corswain's life in battle, which is really interesting, a Fallen saving a loyalist. Corswain slays a greater demon of Slaanesh in the battle, and the rest of the Dark Angels then clear up the remaining enemy, and they basically retake the mountain. Now they need a way to reactivate the Astronomicon. It's been badly damaged, and the Psykers that are still remaining are mostly messed up. Well, everything's really messed up from the presence of chaos that was, holding it and overwhelming it. Now Vassago says he may know of a way to repower the Astronomicon. He knows some knowledge from Calibanite lore. Now, we know where this is going. This is like, fallen stuff that could potentially relight the Astronomicon. The remaining, well, I say remaining Dark Angels, the Dark Angels are there, then make contact with Dawn. They tell him that they've retaken the Hollow Mountain. They inform Dawn that they're 10,000 strong. But this is where the really exciting / interesting thing happens in this part of the story. Now, Vasigo is basically in a passage in the Hollow Mountain, and he's met by 2 other Calibanite, or let's call them fallen Dark Angels. Now, they basically start shouting at Vasigo for saving Corswain's life, and using the law to attempt to relight the beacon. He basically speaks out. This is Vasigo. He speaks out and he's like, look what's happened to Horus Legions. The chaos is a threat and stuff like this. Now, more fallen / Calibanites moving behind him. Now, there's this one Marine which Vasigo is absolutely shocked by. It's someone who he had thought had been left on Caliban, who should not be here. Now, we don't know who this is. Is it Luther? Is it Zahariel? We don't know. All we know is that the Marines order the other... Sorry, we know that this Marine orders the other Marines to take Vasigo, and they move towards him, and Vasigo raises his mace to fight. And that is it. That is his story. We don't know if he survives. We don't know if they kill him. We don't know if they take him. We don't know who this mystery Marine is. Now, the end of the book is with the Emperor. It starts with the Emperor, and it ends with the Emperor. And again, it's the Emperor and his weakened soul. Like, Horus is there again. In front of him, he's like all powerful and stuff, and the Emperor is like all withered and kind of looks like he's dying. Of course, this is the symbolic of the Emperor getting weaker and Horus getting stronger. And it's basically like, Horus, I'm coming for you. I am nearly there. And that is it. That is basically the book over. Now, there's so much more to this book. Again, this is just basically a book summary of some of the things that stood out to me. There's the whole Titan battle over the wall, which is absolutely mind-blowing. There's some of the new War Master, they call War Master Titans, I think, that have just been released. They name-drop them. I'm sure that's kind of like a marketing thing. The Ordo Sinister is there. Dawn takes actually command of the Ordo Sinister and stuff, which is, again, pretty awesome. The Ordo Sinister, like these psychic titans that scare the bejesus out of everyone else. But overall, it was a great book. We are getting into the end game now, as I stated. There's only 3 books left. These books have taken over the course of months. I think the next 3 books are probably going to be taking over the course of weeks now. That is how to the end we're getting. We are near that final breach. I think the next one is maybe it's going to, well, I don't think it's going to feature the Sanguinius holding the gate or anything like that. I think that's going to be the second to the end book. I think maybe we're going to see Sigismund do some more stuff, hopefully, fingers crossed, because we haven't seen him become the Emperor's champion yet, so hopefully that is in for the next book. And hopefully we'll see a few more Primarch battles. We haven't seen Jagatai Khan take on the Death Guard or Mortarion and him retake the spaceport, so maybe that's going to be happening in the next book as well. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this video. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, anything like that, any questions, post them down below. I'll do my best to answer. And yeah, have a nice day. See you now, and bye-bye.